Welcome to Uncovered Biblical History and Traditions, the channel dedicated to lost stories of the biblical past. Discover stories of pre-Christian historical roots, biblical legends, lost church history and forgotten historical characters of faith. It is very helpful if you hit the like, subscribe and share. Help build my channel and let's take a look together into these uncovered forgotten tales. Ancient Britain was not what most people imagine. Far from being a land of primitive tribes painting themselves blue and living in mud huts, pre-Roman Britain was a sophisticated civilization that participated in global trade networks spanning thousands of miles. This hidden history reveals an ancient British society that traded with King Solomon, conducted complex metallurgical operations, and was so valuable to Mediterranean powers that Phoenician captains would deliberately sink their own ships rather than reveal the sea routes to these resource-rich islands. The story of ancient Britain's tin industry and its connections to the Phoenician maritime empire offers a compelling case for rewriting our understanding of European prehistory. This narrative challenges conventional wisdom about who possessed advanced technology, who influenced whom, and which civilizations held economic power in the ancient world. The historical significance of Britain's tin industry stretches back far earlier than most people realize. Classical historians provide consistent documentation of British tin mining and trade starting at least 2,500 years ago. Herodotus, writing around 450 BCE, made some of the earliest major references to an already well-established British tin trade. His accounts described commercial networks that had clearly been operating for generations, recognizing Britain as a primary global source for this crucial metal. A century later, the Greek explorer Pytheas ventured to Britain around 353 BCE and documented the sophisticated mining operations he witnessed. His observations detailed extraction techniques, processing methods, and the social organization that supported these industrial activities. These weren't primitive efforts but systematized operations that reflected generations of accumulated knowledge. Aristotle himself acknowledged the strategic importance of British tin in his writings around 350 BCE. By 150 BCE, the historian Polybius was providing detailed accounts of the transportation routes that carried British tin across Europe, documenting the trade relationships that had developed and the economic importance of British resources to Mediterranean economies. Other significant chroniclers like Diodorus Siculus and Posidonius expanded on these accounts, offering extensive descriptions of British mining communities, documenting their processing and transportation methods, and providing insights into the socio-economic structures that supported this industry. Their writings consistently portrayed the British not as barbarians but as skilled producers with established trade systems. The historical timeline reaches back even further than these classical accounts suggest. Compelling evidence indicates that tin from Cornwall was used in the construction of Solomon's Temple around 1005 BCE. This places British international trade connections at least 1,000 years before the Roman invasion. Historian Creasy documented the use of British sources for Solomon's Temple adornments, illustrating both the scale of extraction operations required and the economic significance of this royal commission. This ancient British Mediterranean connection wasn't simply a matter of raw material export. It facilitated cultural exchange, technological transfer, and linguistic influences that flowed in both directions. The relationship wasn't one of a civilized Mediterranean exploiting primitive island resources but rather a sophisticated commercial partnership between developed societies. The Spanish tin mining industry provides further context for understanding Britain's historical prominence. Julius Caesar's own account from around 50 BCE observed the Talavera tin mine while recognizing the historical precedence and superiority of British mining operations. The Cornwall Spanish mining connection was so strong that historical records show migration of Cornish mining expertise to Spain, with British specialists serving as instructors, technical advisors, and mining superintendents. At the center of this international tin trade were the Phoenicians, whose maritime trade empire created the crucial link between Britain and the Mediterranean world. Their specialized vessels, known as the ships of Tarshish, in both biblical and historical records, were pioneers in the transportation of tin across vast distances. The Phoenicians established remarkable dominance in Mediterranean shipping through strategic deployment of their large fleets, naval military capabilities that protected their trade routes, and sophisticated systems of port control and access regulations. Their commercial operation was the ancient equivalent of a global shipping monopoly that connected distant resource providers with wealthy markets. Perhaps most fascinating are the extreme protective measures Phoenicians employed to maintain their trade advantages. According to the Greek geographer Strabo, who died around 25 CE, Phoenician captains would deliberately wreck their own ships if they suspected they were being followed by potential competitors. Rather than reveal the secret sea routes to Britain's valuable tin deposits, they would sacrifice both vessel and cargo. This wasn't simple paranoia but calculated economic strategy. The Phoenician treasury maintained systems to reimburse captains who made such sacrifices, recognizing that preserving their trade monopoly was more valuable than individual shipments. These extreme security measures included false maritime route documentation, disinformation campaigns about the sources of tin, and highly restricted access to navigational knowledge. The Phoenician base of operations for this secretive Atlantic trade network was established in Cadiz, which served as the gateway between the Mediterranean and the mysterious resource-rich lands beyond the Pillars of Hercules. The technological and cultural sophistication of ancient Britain directly contradicts the common, barbarian, narrative. Classical writers consistently portrayed British society, particularly in the tin-producing regions of Cornwall and Devon, as civilized, organized, and technologically advanced. Recurring references to British friendliness in these accounts highlight their established diplomatic relations with foreign traders and contrast sharply with the hostile encounters Mediterranean travelers experienced in truly undeveloped regions. The metallurgical capabilities of ancient Britons required extensive scientific knowledge and technological skill. Tin extraction alone demanded sophisticated mining techniques, precise ore identification capabilities, and deep geological understanding. Even more impressive was their mastery of lead mining, which presents greater technical challenges than tin extraction. These operations weren't crude endeavors but reflected technical innovations and environmental adaptations developed over generations. Some scholars have even proposed the theory that the Bronze Age itself may have originated in Britain, not the Near East as commonly believed. With tin serving as the critical component in bronze alloys and evidence of very early bronze production in Britain, the technological dissemination may have flowed from the British Isles outward rather than the reverse. While archaeological debates continue, the timeline of bronze development increasingly supports earlier British participation than previously acknowledged. Linguistic evidence further challenges the barbarian narrative. British language development shows Hebrew-influenced foundations, Greek language familiarity, and sophisticated term creation capabilities. Hebrew place names scattered throughout Britain provide cultural historical evidence of ancient connections, with the geographical distribution, etymological roots, and preservation through successive cultural waves suggesting deep and lasting influences from the Eastern Mediterranean. One particularly intriguing thread in this historical tapestry involves Joseph of Arimathea's connection to the British tin industry. Folk traditions preserved in oral histories, poetic fragments, and miners' traditional songs consistently reference Joseph's involvement in the tin trade. Occupational folklore in mining communities includes traditional slogans like, "Joseph was a tin man," and "Joseph was in the tin trade," which appear in ceremonial contexts and show distinct geographic distribution patterns connected to historical mining regions. The traditions raise fascinating possibilities about his economic role as a merchant, investor, or technical advisor in the British tin industry. This fascinating history links early Christianity and British mining communities. The Celtic peoples who inhabited Britain have their own complex history that challenges conventional understanding. The very term, Celtic, evolved linguistically from earlier forms, Cimmerian to Cymry to Cymry to Celtoi to Celt, before reaching its modern usage. Regional variations developed across Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and France, with distinct terms like Celts, Celts, Gaels, and Gauls emerging in different areas while reflecting a common heritage. The renowned French historian François Guizot supported this view in his influential Histoire de la civilisation en France, identifying the Gauls and Celts as the primary inhabitants of what would become France. The geographical relationship between Britain and continental Europe provides the final piece of this historical puzzle. Geological evidence confirms that Britain was once physically connected to the European mainland before rising sea levels separated them. Even after this separation, evidence of continued close contact appears in sources like the Druidic Triads, which reference a Gaulish bishop crossing to Britain on what was described as a plank bridge. These references suggest that communication between the mainland and the islands remained regular and important throughout ancient times. This revised understanding of ancient Britain has profound implications for historical interpretation. It requires a reassessment of the British historical timeline, recalibrating the economic importance of the islands in global trade, and recognizing cultural achievements that predated Roman influence by centuries. Rather than isolated primitives awaiting civilization, pre-Roman Britons appear as sophisticated participants in international networks of commerce, technology, and cultural exchange. This reframing challenges historians to employ more comprehensive methodological approaches that integrate multiple evidence types, documentary sources, archaeological findings, linguistic analysis, and oral traditions, while bringing interdisciplinary perspectives from geology, metallurgy, maritime archaeology, and religious history. Perhaps most importantly, it demands critical assessment of the biases inherent in classical sources, particularly those written from Roman and Greek perspectives or influenced by economic competitor agendas. The story of ancient Britain's sophisticated tin industry and its connection to Phoenician maritime trade represents one of history's most fascinating yet overlooked chapters. It reminds us that historical narratives are constantly evolving as new evidence emerges and old assumptions are challenged. By reconsidering what we thought we knew about ancient Britain, we open the door to a richer, more accurate understanding of European prehistory and the complex global connections that shaped human civilization long before the modern era. If you would like more information where to research this subject, pause this image and look into these resources. I hope you enjoyed this forgotten biblical story. Leave a like, comment, share and subscribe. This is very helpful. Join me next time for another lost story of our biblical history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.